Wow,
not bad. Not bad for a human. That's a different movie.
Wrong franchise.
Same
company now, but wrong franchise.
That's true.
Mm.
Oh boy.
So gentlemen, I understand we've got somewhat of a ticking clock tonight with one of our guests, Mr. Crowley, helping us serve up the laughs.
Yeah, he's the only one on the clock tonight.
Yeah. Cool. Well, so that's great because it'll help us keep this nice and short and sweet as we talk about The Mandalorian Episode 3 on What If He Doesn't Survive.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, I know it's an 8-episode series or whatever, but they did a really good job of making me wonder how he was going to get out of at least one of these situations in tonight's action-packed episode. I call it tonight's episode because I just watched it. I finished watching it about 15 minutes ago.
Okay, so you've only watched it once?
Yes, I've only watched it once. Well, David, you've watched it like 6 times. You're like the Abraham Zapruder of the Mandalorian, which is great.
I've seen it like 2.5-ish, kind of.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay, I literally just watched the shootout again because that seems just fucking awesome. But yeah.
I believe, for the record, this is the first time a woman has directed a live-action Star Wars.
Deborah Chow. Yeah, she did
cool.
a lot of television and stuff like that. And yeah, she did. She directed this is my favorite episode of The Mandalorian so far. There's just so much plot here and so many, different elements that they're introducing where a lot of the fears that I had after last week, I could say were kind of whisked away along with the rocket pack trooper, that kind of gave like the little salute at the end,
Yeah, we got our protagonist a little jelly at the end.
Yeah.
I thought about you, Mike, at the end of this, actually in the middle of the episode when stuff really started hitting the fan, because this is the opposite of the kind of filler. I know you were a bit concerned that he was perhaps going to be going on a whole bunch of little side adventures and maybe he'd get back to the client in like episode 7 or 8.
Yeah.
But what I loved particularly about this episode, in addition to being a perfect encapsulation, like you said, of what this show is, it's funny, it's sweet, it's dark, it's action-packed. It's also sort of the end of a 3-issue, if you want to call it, story arc. Because even though he's going to go off and do something with the little Yoda youngling yet to be named, it does, if you follow episodes 1, 2, and 3, it's a great little, he got the bounty, he discovered what it was, and then he had to make that choice, and he makes the right choice. And if this were a show on like the Fox network that somehow drew like horrible ratings and they canceled it after 3 episodes, I'd be fine with that. But we're going to get so much. I'm just saying. It's not like ending on a lousy cliffhanger or something like that. It's it's just a sweet little story, but we're going to get so much more of that. That's what makes it exciting.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. If this was like maybe like a Star Wars Marvel comic from back in the 80s, this would be like the 3-issue series, and then we'll go on to an issue with 3PO and R2, and then we'll come back to this being a Mandalorian. It was really well done. I can't believe how much more we get out of the overall story in this one episode. I mean, it's just the economy of these chapters are just amazing.
They all feel like these great little short films, and they all like tie together so neatly.
I mean, honestly, the idea to make these under 45 minutes, under an hour, under 45 minutes, that's just a brilliant idea. It's just short and sweet, and it gets to the point. I mean, look at even just the details, like in the backgrounds. We get aliens that are somewhat recognizable. There's a Darth Maul alien type guy in the background. There's there's all sorts of different creatures. Some that we've met before, some that we haven't. But I think the coolest was seeing, once the Mandalorian got his bounty, his Beskar steel booty, in his little ice cream carrier. That's the same ice cream carrier from the Bespin ice cream carrier worker guy. Once he got that, just to see him go down to the kind of underground hidden area where the Mandalorians apparently just hang out. It's like they're waiting just to hang out, waiting for their assignment or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see more Mandalorians, and it was cool to see just them kind of eyeing him with this bounty, this case of Beskar steel. It was really interesting because at first, we really thought there was going to be this kind of begrudging animosity between our main guy and these other Mandalorians. But in the end, of course, it was like a kid dropping all his toys into the bathtub. Where there's all these jetpacks, and the other Mandalorians kind of come to his rescue, and it was just kind of really cool to see that kind of change, that shift. And this kind of honor and loyalty among them. Of course, you probably know already that the kind of hefty, let's say, my Mandalorian was voiced by Jon Favreau. So
I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah.
I thought it might have been Harrison Ford. There's a little bit of husk in there,
It would have been like, "Hey, kid, I want your Mandalorian."
Career paths, yeah.
Yeah, there was a little bit of Iron Man 3 at the end when all the Mandalorians show up in their different configurations. But they were cool because I know it's pandering to the 12-year-old boys trapped in the bodies of 40-plus-year-old men that this series is going for. But when the guy lands with the jetpack and he's got the freaking Gatling gun shooting lasers, I mean, come on.
Yeah, man.
Away. Yeah.
It was great.
Oh yeah, we have another 4-word. Well, we had a 3-word catchphrase in "I Have Spoken." Now we've got "This is the way."
This is the way. Yeah. It's very cool.
It really felt like this kind of felt like it for not even just for episode 3, but this kind of felt like this could have been the wrap up for season 1 of the show, where you're like, okay, wow, we got this huge payoff. We have all of these Mandalorians. We know that now the Mandalorians and the other bounty hunters don't exactly get along, because all these bounty hunters are spying on this Mandalorian to see what he's going to do with that precious cargo, because they all have the little blinking transponders to them. And then in the end, we see the Mandalorians sticking together. So this will be kind of like a civil war sort of aspect that this show might go in, where's bounty hunters versus bounty hunters and things fly out of control. And maybe it'll be sort of a thing about this is how the, universe is sort of falling apart without, within the criminal underworld, without the Empire's control, which is kind of an interesting way to go, where it's not hammered home over your head. And I did like how the Mandalorians did have an honor and a code, and they're not just, a bunch of brainless tough guys or something like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you get the feeling they're sort of a mercenary mirror image of the Jedi Order. They definitely have their own, outfits and weapons and ways of doing things. And they seem stuck. They're in the little bits of dialogue where he goes to the armorer and he gets into that confrontation with, I guess, Jon Favreau. They talk about how our lead character is sort of in league with the Empire, and that he does business kind of like tracking down these bounties because he gets the metal that was smelted in an Empire forge or whatever. And he's like, this guy is one of the reasons that we fell from grace. We used to be glorious, and now we have to go up to the surface one at a time. It's almost like they have to pretend that there's only one of them roaming around at a time, so no one catches on to the fact that they're living in these underground networks or whatever.
Well, if that's the case, somebody's got to lose weight.
Well, let's get back to this. First of all, because at the end, in the middle of this gunfight, the Mandalorian says, this means you're going to have to go, find another planet or another place to have your covert, I think they called it. Basically, you've outed yourself, so you can't stay here. But the other thing is, when he gets his new armor and he walks into the bar, maybe it was the angle, but I just thought he looked like a fat Cylon. Like he was just a little bit too pristine and silvery and a little too bulky. I got used to it by the end, but I was like, I kind of like the scrappy, beat up, red tinged armor.
Well, the screen puts on some pounds, and maybe it's not that bad. Yeah,
my hair covers the pounds.
I did like that scene where I did like the fact that my question from episode chapter 2 was addressed. I was wondering if the client, Werner Herzog's character, had basically put a bounty out on or gave the fobs to everybody, and said, hey, it wasn't just you. I wanted to, it's basically, I was making an insurance claim here. I wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance, or that I had the best chance by handing out this job to everybody. But that was the fun scene there, where as soon as the Mandalorian went basically rogue, which might be what the title of this chapter is, he committed the sin.
One.
Yeah, well, yeah. But he went rogue, and he decided to save Baby Yoda. Who wouldn't? And I love that scene where all the fobs went nuts across the whole area. Went beep, 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 beep.
It was very John Wick. I mean, I've read some stuff. I avoided spoilers and everything, but I have heard people talk about this is just the John Wick episode. And, for something that might be intentionally or unintentionally paying homage to that series, which, I mean, if you're going to rip off from the best, because those are some pretty awesome films. I thought it was handled really well. And I did like, it opens up in a bar scene. You just see the one going off, and then you see the others. It's kind of like the Mos Eisley Chili's, their tables are ready kind of a thing.
It's like that scene. It's like that scene in any Western where someone comes in, they're ready to do gun battle with someone, but little do they know that everyone in that bar is onto them.
Yeah, it's great.
Now, something that occurred to me, first of all, the title, The Sin, I was damn convinced, and I'll give this to Favreau, who wrote this week's episode. When he turns in the Yoda creature and then leaves, I thought there was a part of me that thought, okay, he's going to go back, but maybe they've killed it, or maybe
I know.
And that would have been the sin. David, I think it's interesting the way that you're thinking about it, that he sort of sinned against the code of the Mandalorians, but I'm thinking more in the heavy kind of Catholic guilt. Like, he made this decision for money, and it's going to haunt him for the rest of the series.
Martin Scorsese wrote the script for it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be. Yeah, right. It could be interpreted a lot of different ways. I think it's kind of twofold, where he sinned against the guild. He sinned against maybe the Mandalorian way as well, or... I think the Mandalorians are pretty flexible at this point, because they're like they're more concerned about the whole "this is the way." We're concerned is like, if you adhere to our Mandalorian code and our way, then we're still good with you. Kind of like, screw the bounty hunter guild. I don't think that a lot of bounty hunters have gone against the guild, because it's kind of like going against the union, right? You gotta abide by the rules, and if you're gonna get paid, there's certain rules that you have to abide by. But I was really curious from the get-go, from chapter 1, what kind of history the Mandalorian and Greef Karga has, Carl Weathers' character. How far back they go. I mean, it does make it seem like Greef has a lot of respect for the Mandalorian, Mando, so I don't know, because in this episode we get a lot kind of insinuated about that Greef really knows, kind of knows what his next moves are, and he's kind of a resourceful guy in and of himself. For him to just show up on his Razor Crest on his ship at the end, the last few minutes,
which he leaves wide open.
Yeah.
My wife leaned over and said, "Why did he leave his door open like that?" maybe thinking it was booby trapped or something. I don't know. But
he was born in a barn.
Yeah. I mean, we saw from Aliens what happens when you leave your escape ship open, your drop ship. But I mean, there is some really interesting history there, and I'm sure we'll get more into it. I really like the glimpse. We got a little bit of an in-depth flashback, a callback to episode 1 or chapter 1, where we see the glimpses of his childhood and his parents. They're running in these red robes, and there's some kind of an attack going on. We see more of that attack. We see young Mando shoved into a cellar, and then a battle, an episode 2 or episode 1 destroyer droid, kind of opening up and finding it. That's a robot I thought I'd never see again, but I was strangely happy to see it because it's tying this entire universe together.
It's a nice way to tie it together. Yeah,
it was a nice way to kind of show how the Separatists were still evil, although the Empire took control. In a way, it's like, still evil battle droids.
Yeah, I was reading somewhere where I guess I picked it up on this episode where the young Mandalorian, as a boy, we see him in those flashbacks. He's wearing this kind of like scarlet red robe kind of thing. Yeah. And somebody's like, I wonder if this occurred on Life Day, because everybody wears these robes on Life Day.
Frickin' Life Day,
Sam
man.
did mention it in the first episode, so
I know.
I know. Yeah, they could have spoiled his whole Life Day, and they slaughtered it, because they do talk about how the Mandalorians were slaughtered and they had to hide, and then they coordinated it with cutting to the episode that happened and Pedro Pascal's our Mandalorian's childhood. So it has something to do with it. God, if they actually tied that to
let's get to the lingering question at this. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I thought you cut out. Let's get to the lingering question at this episode or chapter. Kind of leaves us with is that whole scene where Baby Yoda is getting worked on. There's that little rotating or levitating, interrogator droid that we saw from A New Hope. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Pershing's back, and he's begging, I'm keeping him alive. Please don't kill me. Little Yoda's in his slumber, and he's kind of being worked on, like this kind of like, X-ray, table or something. What do you think they're trying to get from this Baby Yoda guy?
Midi-chlorians?
Could be. Could be.
It could be all that. Like, where can we find more little Yodas? Are they high in force count? I hope they don't put midichlorians into that, because, I mean, even J.J. Abrams was joking recently in an article where he was meeting with George Lucas. He said he sure loves his midichlorians, because George Lucas's plan, I guess, with the sequel trilogy was to actually examine the midichlorians and have some of it take place in a microbiotic world. Which,
wow,
you can see why they took the keys away from him.
Well, now you've got Ant-Man. He can explore that with them.
Like Ant-Man can go to the medical world with George Lucas, and but I'm hoping they try to discover. I don't think it'll tie to Yoda. I hope it doesn't, but maybe it'll tie to something of where these other little babies are. Maybe it'll have something to do with the Force. Yeah. But having said that, I hope they avoid midichlorians. But they said it was the only way to keep him alive. I remember that. And I'm trying to see, like, was he dying or?
Well, were they? The last time we saw him, we saw him when he was being turned in. But before that, he had used up a lot of his energy fighting the Mudhorn. So maybe he was, expended or something. I just. God bless the puppetry on this show.
It's amazing.
When Baby Yoda when they're going back into that hive of scum and villainy, you just catch these little looks of him, like, kind of piecing together that something's not right, and you're just like, oh God. And then he gives him that last look as he's being taken into the room, and it causes Mando to say, what are you doing with him?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's just heartbreaking stuff.
The other thing, too, about this episode is we saw him with some new weaponry, huh? Mm-hmm. I love that little surveillance option on the audio surveillance option on the long gun that he has. That was pretty cool.
It's like those two little spikes are like tuning forks or something, or antennae,
Right. That was kind of perfect.
The little stun missiles, like on his wrist, those are pretty interesting to see.
Yeah, what did they call them? The birds or something, or
whistling birds?
Whistling birds.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, going back to Iron Man, I mean, he had those in, I think, the first Iron Man movie. He used those on the terrace when he got cornered. Right. So, because this is a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Maybe Mandalorian is like Tony Stark's like ancient grandfather to the millionth degree.
Never know. Never know.
But
only Favreau knows.
Could be. Well, he was in that movie. It's all connected. It's like poetry. All rhymes. But one of the things I really liked about this episode was that it draws a stark contrast, I think, more than the others, as to how far the galaxy has crumbled in the aftermath of Jedi the last thing we see in Return of the Jedi is the Empire has fallen, and everybody's happy. It cut to all these sort of planets, and people are like singing and celebrating and stuff.
But
yes, the original, the good song. Yeah. But on the outer reaches, where things, are not related to the Skywalker clan, the things aren't so great.
Yeah, those things are kind of up in the air. It's really interesting. I think even in this episode, I noticed that Herzog is wearing that medallion, and it's the Imperial symbol on there. So some people are maybe kind of working with this loyalty towards the former Empire. I mean, obviously he's employing stormtroopers who are apparently are not fire retardant.
No, but they do move more with that military precision, like they're all like in Call of Duty or something, which makes me wonder. There's so much mystery to this show. We don't know if the client or even his little scientist guy or any of those stormtroopers are actually ex-Empire. Much like in the first episode of The Mandalorian, we were questioning, is he an actual Mandalorian, or did he somehow just come across this armor or whatever and kind of take on this mantle? We don't know who these Empire folks are. The other thing that occurred to me is, what if, in a really dark-hearted twist, Baby Yoda is adorable, and we're kind of ascribing all this stuff to him because of what we know of Yoda? Is it possible that there are evil members of the species? And, could Mando be making the absolute wrong decision? And because he's not sticking around to find out what those quote-unquote Empire people are actually trying to do to him, maybe they're awesome. No,
Yoda?
He's the little devil child. We're trying to prevent Palpatine too.
Little Damien Yoda.
So I was going to say Damien Yoda.
Yes.
No, can't do it.
He's still got to sell that way.
Yes.
They still got to sell toys. Come on.
They can sell him with a little red lightsaber.
Yeah, you sell him, and then you give him a little red lightsaber, and that's a great way to troll the audience, but in a good way.
So now the next episode is going to introduce Gina Carano.
How do you know this? Did you look ahead?
Yeah, well, it's the beauty of the IMDb,
Oh, okay. I was wondering if I don't.
Bryce Dallas Howard is directing the next one.
Really?
Yep. Yeah. The Mandalorian teams up with an ex-soldier to protect a village from raiders. So the raiders are Nazis, and that's a different movie.
Yeah, there we go.
Cool. Well, Bryce Dallas Howard, it'll be cool to see her direct the next episode. I wonder if she'll direct it in heels, like as she ran Jurassic Park.
Man, her feet must hurt like a motherfucker. Yeah, God damn.
She threw those heels up in a telephone wire.
Yeah. Wow. So my question is, why couldn't they have gotten? I'm sorry. What was the name of the director who made this? Deborah Chow. Why couldn't she have directed Charlie's Angels?
Wow. Well, she was busy doing this.
Yes,
it's a better
I guess
gig.
So. Yeah. All right. Well,
someone who would say foolish things in the press junket when it bombed. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what they were aiming for. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think we've covered a lot. Any final thoughts on Mando Episode 3, The Sin?
I want to see if the next few episodes are going to kind of feel like multi-parters like the other one, or now we're going to be thrown into this whole huge other part of the galaxy.
I'm really curious to see if it's going to remain like this kind of lone wolf and cub thing, or if, he's going to, stop over at his great uncle's home planet and lay Baby Yoda out with him for a little while he goes and takes care of a few things,
or just throws him in the trash compactor.
Because the thing now, he's a bounty hunter now, and now he's a wanted guy, and how is he gonna get work? He's got to get a new handler. Grief Karga probably is not going to want to work with him. So I don't know.
The hunter becomes the hunted.
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, I think we already established he is going to become hunted as well as his fellow Mandalorians, as the other bounty hunters are going to go after them.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Well, there is a whole galaxy of possibilities, and I'm excited. So, Mike, it looks like you've got to run.
I see a lot of heads popping in.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, we will let you go. And yes, until next time, thank you both again, gentlemen. And yeah, we'll catch you next week.
All right. I have spoken.
Later. That is the way.
Yes.